Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the impact of media on eating habits. Growing up, I went to an all-girls private school, an all-girls camp, and then shifted to co-ed in high school. I feel like I've been surrounded by eating disorders my whole life, and yet worry about today's youth much more than anything. I truly can't imagine being a kid surrounded by social media, but rather than thinking it is unimaginable, it is important for us to understand the impact that social media has on body image and how it affects the people who use it. For this presentation, I focus on women because that is what I have experienced, but want to note that these effects are true for men and more research needs to be done in that field. Throughout the presentation, I will talk about some theories we all know and how they compare to actual situations in our day-to-day lives. Then briefly discuss the research, what this research could mean for the future. An alarming 90 to 95% of all diagnosed eating disorders are in women. This is due to the fact that in recent years, thin has become the ideal body image that women strive for. Although eating disorders are generally thought and treated as a mental health issue, researchers argue, and I would have to agree, that it is much more a socio-cultural issue at the moment. That's not to disregard the mental health aspect of the disorder, but also to include it. There are also motivational issues at play, which plays into the idea of marketing a certain body type. There is the argument that rather than simply a clinical issue, eating disorders are a response to the social issues of the role women are meant to play in society. Culturally induced eating refers to the fact that it is normal and expected now for women to watch what they eat or be thinking about exercise. The fitness industry plays off of the fact that women's equality is on the rise to make the point that now being independent means improving your body in any way possible. Basically, the industry is attempting to portray women who do not care about being thin as lazy and out of control. The food industry, the diet and weight loss industry, the cosmetic surgery industry, the fitness industry, and I would argue the clothing industry are all playing into this idea that disordered eating is okay. And not even okay, but in fact, ideal and necessary for women. With the ability to have information at our fingertips and the constant use of social media, the images of the ideal body are everywhere all the time, making it easier for women to buy into these images. That's the basic understanding of cultivation theory. The second issue is that due to the amount of images people see, they think that these body types are not only desirable, but that they are realistic. Only 5 to 10% of women are able to physically achieve the body image that is displayed all over social media, where the rest of the population is left striving toward unachievable goals. Women are directly changing their eating habits based on what they see and what they are trying to achieve based on images in the media. At some point in our undergrad, or even during this program, we have all learned that social comparison theory and about social comparison theory and the implication it has for athletes. However, social comparison theory is seemingly unavoidable in all aspects of life, and this is especially true for women and understanding the effects social media has on their well-being. Festinger discussed different types of comparison, upward and downward, and in later research, lateral comparisons were added in. Upward comparisons are when we compare ourselves to someone who is in a better position than we are, and these produce the most negative affect, and are what we will focus on later in the presentation. Downward comparisons compare the individual to someone in a worse position than they are in, which produces positive affect, and lateral comparisons look to someone who is in a similar position, which also generally produces positive affect. Unfortunately, women are more likely to make upward comparisons than either of the other two. This plays a serious role in how they perceive the world through social media. Prior to social media, the upward comparisons were in the form of magazines and TV shows and personal interactions, which compared the average individual to a celebrity at unreachable standards. However, you knew these unreachable standards were being highly edited and therefore thought of them as unreachable. Now, with the ability to connect to all of your peers on social media, as well as those peers editing their photos, the comparisons are more relatable and therefore more detrimental to negative affect of the individual making the upward comparisons. Researchers also found that in all contexts, women are more likely to think about changes to diet or exercise after making an upward comparison. Then, even more alarming, women were more likely to monitor food intake and exercise habits following social media comparisons than they were for in-person comparisons. This shows the potential for a direct effect between social media and eating disorders, although more research needs to be done in the future. Knowing how these comparisons affect female behavior is key in understanding how to intervene in the future. When I was in boarding school, I always thought the people who watched the Food Network while working out were so interesting. Back then, I didn't understand it at all. I felt it was counterproductive, but also just made these judgments because that didn't motivate me to work out. I needed a larger distraction. That's why when I came across this study done by a postdoctoral fellow at Cornell, I was all the more interested. These researchers were also interested in the effect that watching the Food Network had on eating habits of viewers. What was found was that although in-home cooking has gone down significantly, the rate of viewing the Food Network has significantly increased, meaning that viewers are watching the Food Network for other reasons than instructional lessons. People seem to actually be watching the network as an escape from the healthy norms expected by society. The example of watching Rachel Ray for instruction versus Guy Fieri for excitement and a break from cultural norms was given. It was also made clear that those who viewed the Food Network and then also cooked at home had a higher BMI than those who didn't, meaning that what is being shown on the Food Network is having an actual impact on what people are cooking, and they are cooking more unhealthy meals than they would be if they didn't watch the Food Network. This information could have a serious impact on future interventions working with the Food Network to potentially create healthier society, as well as understanding the impact that media has on eating habits. Even though social media isn't going anywhere, I think that it could one day be used to promote health rather than destroy it. Understanding how people perceive the information they see is key. As the research has shown, the perception is generally negative, and it is sad that body dissatisfaction is the new normal. The research could be the start of future workings with the Food Network or organizations like Instagram and Facebook to reduce editing capabilities in an understanding that it could promote health publicly. Although the research so far is disheartening, I'm optimistic about the future direction of our health as a society. With the right intervention techniques, body satisfaction can one day be the new normal.